So when a is not 1 in trinomials, this is a, the leading coefficient, then we have to use a longer factoring method to rewrite this expression in 2 parentheses. And so the way you do that is you multiply the first number and the last number, okay? Because that's going to help you determine like a special way to split up that middle number so that you can factor it into 2 parentheses. Okay, so we got to multiply 3 times, that's a -8 because the sign to the left is a negative sign. So it makes -24. That's I heard a teacher one time call that the magic number. You multiply the first and the last number, that makes -24. And our goal is to find 2 numbers that multiply to be -24, but add up to be this middle number. And I'm trying to get the sign here too. To add up to -10. And so when it's a negative number, that's usually tricky for students because you've got to be able to do negative and positive arithmetic in your head while also multiplying. So sometimes it helps list out the multiples. You could do 1 times -24, and that would multiply to be -24. But that doesn't add up to be -10, right? 1 plus -24 makes -23, so we got to keep looking. So another way to multiply 2 numbers to make -24, we could do 2 times -12. 2 times -12 makes -24. And then if you were to add these 2 numbers, a +2 plus a -12, that makes -10. So that's it. We've actually found our pair. Now we can rewrite that middle term. I'm going to rewrite it as plus 2x minus 12x minus 8. Look, it's the same expression, just rewritten so that the middle term was expanded to have our magic pair there, right? The 2 times -12. Because if you were to combine those, it would turn back into -10x. And the whole reason for splitting it up like that is to now make them into 2 groups. And look, I'm going to take that negative sign with me. Always make sure to take the negative sign with you when you make these groups, okay? You can put a little plus in between here if you want, because plus doesn't change anything. It's a minus sign that could possibly change your result. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, we'll put parentheses around the first 2 terms, the parentheses around the last 2 terms, and now your goal is to factor out what's in common in each of those parentheses. So up here, I can take an x out of both of those. And over here, it's -12x minus 8. Good habit to have is to always factor out a negative sign if your leading term is negative. So that's a -12x. I'm going to take out a negative value. And the biggest number I can take out of both of those is -4. Because 12 can be divided by 4, 8 can be divided by 4. And when I do that, I'm left with 3x. Okay, because I'm doing -12x divided by -4 makes positive 3x. And then -8 divided by -4 makes positive 2. And we're almost done. Now that we factored out what's in common in each of the parentheses, look, you have a 3x plus 2 in this first term, and 3x plus 2 in the second term. So you'll want to factor out 3x plus 2, and then you have a parentheses with the stuff left over. You have an x and a -4. So you could say plus -4, you could just say x minus 4. Either way is fine. Okay, so we'll do the same type of thing over here. We want to multiply the first and the last terms. So 6 times 5 makes 30. We want to find 2 numbers that multiply to be 30, but add up to be -13. So you could do 1 times 30. That would make 30, but it adds up to be 31, so that's not going to work. So since they need to add up to be a negative number, that gives us a clue. The only way you can have 2 numbers to multiply to be positive, but add up to be negative is if they're both negative. Right? -1 times -30 would make a positive 30. -1 plus -30 makes -31. So we know that they both have to be negative. But this isn't the right set of numbers because that multiplies to be, click down here, that multiplies to be, that adds up to -31, I should say. So maybe -2 times -15, that multiplies to be positive 30, but adds up to be -17. -2 plus -15 makes -17 when you add them. Negative 3 times negative 10. That multiplies to be positive 30. That adds up to be negative 13. So that's our pair that we want. So we'll do the same thing we did up above. And then remember, it's tempting to just combine like terms if you're new to factoring. Like, oh, I know the s's can combine, but we split them up on purpose so that we could factor. And then remember, you got to put the sign to the left inside your parentheses. The negative 10s, so I made sure to put a negative sign next to the 10s inside the parentheses. Then you can put a plus between those, because plus doesn't change anything. And then factor out what you can. You can take a 3 and an s out of this first parentheses. Remember 3s, divide by 3s. That doesn't make nothing, that makes 1. And then negative 10s plus 5. Remember our rule, we always want to have a positive starting off, so I'll take out a negative 5. Oh, and that's going to make a minus 1 over here. Oh, and I messed up over here. Look, 3s squared divided by, sorry, I just said it wrong. 6s squared divided by 3s makes 2s, not 1s. So negative 10s divided by negative 5. Negative divided by negative makes a positive 2s. And a positive 5 divided by negative 5, that makes negative 1. And then just like before, we get two parentheses that are the same. Factor out the 2s minus 1. And what's left are the numbers right in front of the parentheses, 3s and negative 5. Okay, same thing here. We want to start by multiplying the 6 and the negative 12. Makes negative 72. And our goal is to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 72 but add to be negative 11. So two numbers need to multiply to make negative 72. That means one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative, because a negative times a positive would make it negative. But this isn't it, because these two numbers add up to be negative 71. So we'll keep looking. What is it? 36. 2 times negative 36, that makes negative 72, but you add those up, it makes negative 34. Try 3. 50 divided by 3, that makes negative 24. This would multiply to be negative 72, but you add those up, it only makes negative 21. We got to keep looking. 72 divisible by 4. Yeah, 4 and negative 18. That doesn't add to be negative 11, so we got to keep looking. 5 won't work, maybe 6 will work. Yeah. 6 divides 72 evenly to make 12. Multiply those two, it makes negative 72, but you add those up, it makes negative 6. So this one, unless I did my multiplication wrong, no. This one is prime. It's prime because there's no way to factor this one. You can't find two numbers that multiply to be negative 72, but add it to be negative 11. Because you can keep going on this list, but look, I passed negative 11. 4 times negative 18 makes negative 72, but you add those up, it makes negative 14. And then this added up to make negative 6. So between negative 14 and negative 6, we passed negative 11. There's no options left.